Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Experis Technology Group podcast. James Hilliard on board. Glad to be back with you all for another conversation. Today, hunting cyber threats and protecting your digital enterprise. This event is brought to you by Experis Technology Group and in partnership with HPE. For the past 2 decades, if you're not aware of Experis, they have really been focused, the whole team there, last 2 decades, really providing businesses with secure, high performance, and highly available systems to really support all of their mission critical workloads. What we're going to do for the next 30 minutes or so really dive into a conversation about how to protect your digital enterprise, optimize your security posture. I'm sure we'll have a mention or two of some products out there, including things like the HPE ProLiant DL380 Gen 11 Plus servers. Those are powered by 4th and 5th generation Intel Xeon scalable processors. They really do provide the hardware out there to really help organizations with their security and moving forward. So we'll talk more about that. The two that are going to focus more on the technology are Raymond Tuchman. He is the CEO of Experis. We're glad to have him on board. Also happy to have from HPE, Cole Humphreys. He's the Global Platform Security Product Manager there at HPE. Start off a little bit about kind of the relationship between the two companies and why they're so complementary, what they're providing to folks out there. Also, then how we can overcome some of the common security issues out there, supply chain challenges tied to security as well. So that's going to be the first half of our conversation. Then, our pleasure to be able to bring to you a special guest speaker today, Eric O'Neill. He is a former FBI counter-terrorism and counterintelligence operative. Eric played a major role in the arrest, the conviction, and ultimately the imprisonment of FBI agent Robert Hansen for spying on behalf of the Soviet Union, believe it or not still, and Russia. Eric's book details that experience. The book is Gray Day, My Undercover Mission to Expose America's First Cyber Spy. Also, if you're familiar with the movies out there, we're in that season of focusing on movies and entertainment. 2007 movie Breach was based on and focused on Eric's role there in the downfall of Hansen. So we'll get into some of that conversation, get a little state of the union too from Eric on where he sees the security space and needs. With that, a lot to get to. And Raymond, glad to have you on board. Really want to start at the end of the day with feedback, which is kind of strange, right? Usually we get feedback at the end, but I want to start with feedback in what your client base, customer base tell you that your team and HPE together bring to them. What are some of the big benefits they get from working with your teams?
We've been a HPE exclusive partner for the last 24 years. And some of the things that we bring to our clients is the consistency that we offer, providing solutions, infrastructure solutions, security solutions to our clients. HPE gets a significant amount of value from us, as well as our clients. We are completely consistent. Our staff, our engineering staff, and our sales staff are working with clients for years, understanding what their problems are and how we can help them solve their problems. We understand where they've come from, where they are today, and we also help them with solutions for them into the future, for them to be able to achieve their business needs.
Having been a part of that journey for so many teams for so long, it does give you specific insights, right? You can see the evolution of the security landscape and all. One of the conversations I have with a lot of teams today around security is they're not quite sure what they have because there's been a lot of focus on investments in security. And sometimes there is that shiny new security object. So they go after that. And it's almost like there's security sprawl, right? We've had server sprawl. We've had all these other sprawls out there. And some complain about security sprawl. How do you get engaged with teams to help them focus on what they have, where a blind spot might be, and some areas that they need to be focusing on and maybe even investing in moving forward?
So we'll do an analysis of what they're presently are using for security and how is it working with their needs. Different clients, from small clients all the way up to our government type of clients, they have different security needs. Some really embrace security, and it's all comes down to a lot of times a financial impact of what they think that they're going to to need. Some are like, I have to have complete security, and they're willing to spend to make sure that their systems are always secure. And a lot of times that's our government clients, where we've got small other clients, maybe some small associations or law firms or whatever. Security is, of course, important to all of them, but how much money are they willing to place in security? We're helping them do a risk analysis on what are their security needs and how much will they require, and how much cost will it cost them to achieve those needs.
Before I bring in Cole and we talk a little bit about how HPE is bringing some of the technologies to bear to help people when it comes to their security posture and making sure those networks are secure, our data is secure, et cetera. Want to get from you kind of an idea of your client base. Are there certain trends in security of the challenges they're dealing with now, right? The top two or three things that almost across the board, each company you engage with is focused on this and this and this right now today.
Things that they're focused on today. One of the things that we try to work with them is that they want to make sure their infrastructure is completely secure. And one of the things that HPE provides, that we can provide to the client, is a very secure supply chain to our customers. We have requirements where we have to sign off to make sure that none of the equipment that we provide to a client has come from an unfriendly country. And it has to come and be built in the United States, and it has to have a complete secure chain of supply to that end customer, where when it comes from HP manufacturing directly to the client, it's all password protected, each item, each server. And so if there's any tampering or anything that could have happened within that infrastructure, that product, that the customer at the end site will know before they actually even start the systems up and start executing things.
And that is one of the key things that I know a lot of teams are focused on in terms of their investments in creating technology. And Cole, I think that's a perfect point to bring you in here. And HPE has been a foundational leader for so many years in the industry, and has always been leading in that investment of the newest ways to protect the hardware, which ultimately then protects our networks, protects the data, protects our employees, and all that. So Cole, I want to get you involved here and just talk a little bit about HP's leadership there, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the technology like these Gen 11 servers and how they're really changing the storage and security landscape. But talk about the investment and the focus from an HPE perspective on making sure that the hardware you all develop is secure, is going to give us that foundational starting point.
Absolutely. I feel like, HPE, there's a couple things that are really relevant, I think, to this conversation. One, we really value partnership. If you talk about, what Raymond just covered, 24 years of partnership together, right? HPE takes our partnerships very seriously because we know ultimately get those tailored solutions optimized for those customers. That's how it works as a partnership. And I would say equally on that thread is security alone is not owned by any one organization or person, right? An effective security solution is kind of a team working together to make it more complicated for an adversary to tamper with the infrastructure. And I think that's where HPE really shines in our part, because we take this approach that we call trusted security by design, where literally from our architectures that our engineers are cooking up in their brains to deploy these servers from scratch, right? They're thinking about ways of how could we make mechanical intrusion detection, electronic intrusion detection. How do we create other synergies with software and other partner ecosystems so that those solutions are robust and meaningful to that end user? Because security isn't just a buzzword for us. We literally think about it in every element of design.
Well, Cole, I do appreciate that. And I know that we did want to share a little more on the technical side, a little bit deeper dive. We're not going to go super in the weeds, folks, but a little bit more about the evolution of, again, the ProLiant series of servers out there. We're up to, from Gen 10 to 11, with the latest, of course, Intel 4th and 5th generation Xeon scalable processors there. So let me turn that back to you and have you share a little bit more about that evolution.
Right. And as we talk about the foundation of a security solution, I wanted to share kind of an image as how we think about our HPE ProLiant security as it goes. And it really begins, as you heard, not only is it important as a starting point just for building solid solutions, but it's also becoming part of regulation and governance, that having a secure supply chain is part of what you need to bring proof to the table about how you build these solutions out. And we have a pretty meaningful supply chain. We also build servers with that trusted security by design. And then we've really kind of gone all in as a service company, which is what we believe is our future. And we're building kind of software that delivers management or security, if you will, across multiple servers. So for example, as we look about here, our supply chain, our trusted supply chain, as we call it, is a real service that you can take advantage of from our HPE factories. We own one in the United States that you can have that server hardened and shipped to that location. As we heard in that example, that's a very meaningful trusted supply chain beginning to the conversation. But then it isn't only just the handling from our supply chain, but it's actually some of the technologies in our server. For example, that Gen 11 server with ILO 6, right? We have probably all of our best innovations really showcase on this latest and greatest platform. You see elements of a silicon root of trust where the secrets are baked in, to the fabrication of our BMC, and that immutable secret is used throughout the system, checks across all the critical firmware components to make sure there has not been a compromise. This is critical to ensuring a secure boot, as well as making sure that system is secure during runtime. And then ultimately, what if you have, hundreds or thousands of these things all over the place? You need innovation to help you, manage the security settings to keep policies, set up correctly and be able to enforce those. And then also, alerts that are coming in so you can see what's going on and quickly make decisions with improved visible with improved visuals through our new security dashboard, as well as many alerts that would spur action, helping you save time, and ultimately that time translates into uptime. And then you put all those together, and I think those are what really build a meaningful solution. Because as you kind of go, what we believe is this, it's not just building the products anymore, right? You've got to design and build great products. That requirement hasn't gone away, but it's really about having operational security in that design as well. Because once those systems get out into the world, right, that's where a lot of the attacks are happening. A secure boot is absolutely critical to get going into production. But then once it's running, what if somebody tries to change the firmware? What if somebody opens up the server and tries to, chip clip and, flash a component to, compromise the system? All these things create this whole flow of designing and building, which I think you can see in a ProLiant Gen 11, and then also run and operate security. And that's where you're going to see products like HPE GreenLake for compute ops management working hand in glove to give that design and build and run and operate holistic security approach. But again, this is just a foundation, and this is why working with great partners like Experis really complete that experience for the customer, because they can build out those meaningful solutions.
And I want to just briefly, kind of stop there in terms of the working between the three teams. So a partner like Experis, HPE, and the partner. What does it look like in terms of those early days once a customer has said, yeah, this looks like the stack HPE GreenLake looks like the tool that we want to utilize here to really move us forward. What are some of the initial touch points, and what is done early on to really get that journey started?
So, I mean, for me, from HPE's perspective, I think, the creation of new capabilities and evolving those, and then working hard to create awareness. But I think ultimately the value of a relationship with a partner like Experis is where it really comes together. Because I know from our relationship together, a lot of the benefit is removing all the complexity. We may have so many different products and features and functions to do all sorts of things, but Raymond and his team are going to know how to put those together, to be optimized for that specific use case, because it's got to be not only secure and performant and all those things, but it also has to be affordable, right? And I think that's where you take all this great innovation, but it's a lot coming out of HPE, right? And our partners, especially Experis, does a great job taking our best of breed, if you will, and putting that together in an optimized and affordable way that the customers just really respond to.
I'm sitting here listening to that response and I'm nodding my head because it's reminding me of the conversations I've had, again, out on the road with people, user conferences and groups of CISOs. And one of the things that is said all the time is we love the fact that security is now a focus. But oh my gosh, there's a lot. And sometimes it's, where do we start? Or is it overkill here? Are we not focusing here? And so having that trusted leadership from Raymond and his team to really say, you know what, based on who you are and what you are, we've seen others like it. We think this is the best course of action for now. It's having that trusted guide. So I do appreciate hearing that. I'm sure Raymond did as well. Here's what I want to do. I appreciate Cole that, and I really do want to kind of switch gears a little bit here so we can take the second half of the conversation and talk with Eric O'Neill. And Eric, we're going to come back to the Hansen case. We're going to come back to some of the things that you've been doing since then. But I want to start with something that I know, and I'm hoping piqued your interest in listening to Raymond and Cole. And it was this idea of making sure that you've got a secure supply chain, because you co-founded a supply chain assurance and critical infrastructure protection company. That was one of the things that is ever so important to teams. What these guys are saying about that, how did that resonate with you?
Yeah, as I was hearing Cole and Raymond talk about the architecture and what they're building with security, the word that kept popping into my mind is trust. Because I think that we can take the very long word cybersecurity and just replace it with the word trust, because that is what we're doing. And if you want to talk about supply chain, in just the last few years, we saw the three biggest cyber supply chain attacks in history. Attacks, two by foreign state actors, one by China, one by Russia, and the other by a cybercrime syndicate, a cyber criminal group who just copied Russia. Just took the same foreign intelligence supply chain attack and copied it to do many of the same things. The only difference was, instead of stealing data, they made a Bitcoin. And so we're going to see a lot more of this. And so being able to trust not only your own data infrastructure, but those you connect with is even more critical. And what I like to say all the time is that none of us live on a digital island. We're not secure. We don't have a moat. We're connected in so many ways to everyone we do business with, all of those we transact with customers, with vendors, with suppliers. And so that supply chain is always going to be a point of attack for those who want to steal that data that, hey, it's become the currency of our lives.
Because of the past 3+ years, is that supply chain notion more front and center on conversations that you have and that you see in the industry in general, as opposed to pre-COVID?
It's certainly, COVID changed the entire game for cyber attacks. And if you just look at what happened with COVID, and I know we're talking to a lot of people in IT, I'm there with you. I know how you felt. Once upon a time, we all worked in a much more trusted environment and offices, and COVID grabbed us by the seat of our pants and threw us all home, and entire workforces adopted technologies that security was never ready for. And so this tele-everything world we've become, where, you talk to many businesses and they will say, well, we're hybrid first, and they're real proud of it. Great. People are working from home. People are working from Starbucks. People are working from the road in hotels and in very unsecure environments. So how do you create trust when you're working with an internet that never was built for security, in places that are not built for security, and when cybercrime is the fastest growing business on earth? That isn't even taking into account all of the espionage that now has moved from the cloak and dagger of old, when I was working undercover in counterintelligence and counterterrorism in the 90s and the 2000s, to now full on cyber espionage. So creating that trust in architecture, creating that trust in data sets, creating that trust in how data is shared, how data is collaborated on, the trust in data, that is the holy grail for cybersecurity.
Since we do have such a audience focused on IT, there are some business executives that still have a hard time opening up that checkbook and saying, what, another security thing? I got to buy, what? I thought we did this last quarter, last year. What? How do you give us I'd love a good tip here, something, I hope people take a lot away from this conversation, but one tip that technical IT folks can use to talk to the C-class and say, this is why we still need to do this. It's not an end game. It's a journey. This never ends. What do you say to them? How do you help them, get that message across?
Typically you'll hear somebody like me, a national security strategist, say, explain to them the cost, right? And the cost is there. A business email compromise attack now, right? Average cost, and that's that email that goes and purports to be from the CFO or the CEO and says, send this wire immediately or we're going to lose this big deal. Everybody laughs because we're in the know. I mean, and by the way, we can get into how that has completely changed with the advent of AI, but that is still the second largest cybercrime on earth. Just those emails that fool people into sending a wire, and the cost for an organization that falls for one, the average cost is $5 million. A ransomware attack, the average cost is between $5 and $10 million, and it doesn't include the cost of the ransom. But that's not how I like to sell it. I talk to boards, I talk to executive teams, I talk to CEOs. Really, it's about the threat. The fact that we rely so much on data to drive innovation, to drive experience, to build entire economies, you have to understand the threat. Cybercrime is fueled by the dark web, and the dark web has grown from a sort of pirate island of information sharing to the third largest economy on earth. The cost of cybercrime, this is just cybercrime. Now, the dark web has all sorts of things. Everything's from, you can buy pieces of bodies to a huge drug trade to every weapon known to man. But just the cost of cybercrime that's moving through cryptocurrency in the dark web in 2023 was between 11 and $12 trillion. By 2026, it will be $20 trillion at its current rate of growth. So if we call that a gross domestic product, right now, because the US and then China and then the dark web is the third largest economy on earth, and it is bigger than Germany and Japan put together, who would have been 3 and 4. That's what we're up against. Your business is protecting against full business verticals that have been created and resourced by the best criminal minds who have learned by the best espionage units. And in fact, now they are hiring former intelligence officers that are adept at cyber attacks to just come after you. And so you need to, boards and CEOs, they have to understand that the threat is so present and sophisticated that if you don't invest in the best cybersecurity, not just the basic level, but I'm talking gold standard, you will be a victim and they will make away with your data. And then you will be in that pressure situation of having to decide, what do we do to get it back or get it destroyed?
And those investments, again, as HPE has been a leader, really now begin at the hardware. And it's not just their end hardware, it's how they go out and source the parts and components they're getting, where those are built and all that. And that's, again, it just has to start at the bottom up, as opposed to the Frankenstein model that you laid out earlier. That's really what so many things have just been bolted onto this thing we call the internet and the thing we call our networks. Okay, I still want to get to the Hansen story. We're getting there briefly, but I want to take, this is so horrible to even say to someone like you, but 2 minutes for you to tell us what are the bad guys doing with AI, right? Emerging technologies that they're using to be even more threatening to us than they have been in the past.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm not an AI, but I got to say that. And sometimes I come on these things and I tell everybody, well, just shake your head and wave your hands like crazy, because AI hasn't really gotten good at that yet. But the fact of the matter is that, I said that business email compromise, according to the FBI last year, it was a $50 billion crime globally and growing. It's massive. That business email compromise is really just the old imposter schemes from old spy tradecraft, right? I'm going to fool you into believing that I'm someone you can trust and you're going to pay me. You're going to do what I tell you to do. So this has happened. Like about a month ago, I was projecting that soon there will be deep fakes that will be used in order to fool people in the best evolution of a business email compromise scheme. And this just happened. A multinational corporation in Hong Kong. It's a UK-based firm that had a large branch office in Hong Kong. There was a financial associate that was working out of there, receives an email from the CFO in the UK, and he's like, wow, this guy actually knows I exist. Not saying send a wire. See, that would be typical. And everybody still falls for that, even with all the training. No, saying, join me on a virtual conference meeting. And so he logs in, and there's the CFO, the Uber CFO, the whole multinational corporation. 2 people he recognizes from finance and 2 people he doesn't recognize. They go around, they introduce themselves. You can see the scheme. The 2 people he doesn't recognize say, we're partners. The CFO says, we're going to do business with them, and then terminates the call. The next email says, we need to start sending wires. And for 2 weeks, he sends 15 wires, $25 million total to different banks in Hong Kong before finally his gut feeling turns into an ulcer and he can't take it anymore. And he calls over to the UK. And they've never heard of him. They don't even know he works there. It was every single avatar, and it could be any one of us, as an avatar deepfaked by mining social media and press interviews and all sorts of stuff online. We are putting massive amounts of content online. Right now, it takes $5 and 5 seconds to deepfake a person and create a pretty convincing avatar. If you spend a little bit more time using these free and paid apps online, you can make a pretty impressive one. They don't move a lot, but they do blink and they do talk, and it's synced with the voice.
That is an absolutely horrific and scary tale. It begs me to ask, can't we just go back to the time when we get the Prince emails for some money and we'd see the misspelling and it was the wrong color logo and it was the wrong font and we all just knew it was a scam, and we can't, and that's why we have to be so vigilant in our thought process.
And that's why you can't train it away. You can't train it away because AI is now writing the emails. It's checking the grammar and spelling. It's making sure the logo is crisp. And then it translates that email into every language on earth. So you can attack every country. It's made it harder.
It has made it harder. Let's get to a little conversation about Robert Hansen. Again, he was a spy for the USSR and for Russia. This was between 79 and 01 when he was brought down. Thank you, sir. And the Justice Department did, I had a quote here, possibly the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history. Now, I don't have a Palm Pilot. This is the Handspring Trio. As you see, it was their kind of knockoff, very similar. Yep. This is basically what you got from Hansen. You took it from him, cloak and dagger, put it back, cloak and dagger, and that was his downfall. Could that happen today with iPhones tethered to iWatches, to iPads, to devices? I mean, could that even happen today, given all the advancements in technology?
It's a lot more cutting edge these days, and advances in technology have completely changed the game. And not only how espionage has evolved into primarily cyber attacks in order to steal information, because we've networked our data system so effectively that they will find a way to fool a person, compromise a person. And instead of having to have Robert Hansen, who, by the way, wasn't recruited by the Soviets, he volunteered his services originally, who goes into a building and steals information that is on paper. Now, what made Hansen unique was he was actually penetrating computer systems at the FBI that were never built to defend from a trusted insider in the inside. And the way that the FBI was defending from exterior attackers was, well, there was no outside access. Wasn't even access to the internet back then. Today, attackers are attacking people, and that's why they're coming after employees and fooling them using all sorts of schemes that we used to see in street spy tradecraft in order to trust them and then to give them access to information that would let them steal their username and credentials and create a virtual trusted insider in your environment. So Hansen, one of the reasons he used a Palm Pilot is because, one, it's a digital calendar. He had to know when he was supposed to make his drops in a park to the Russians year after year. And two, it was a way to store information. And he was moving in the evolution of his espionage. One plan he had with the Russians, and not a lot of people know this, was that he was going to exchange his Palm Pilot with one that they would leave him. So they would constantly swap a device that stores data instead of having to put it on floppy disks and all those sort of things, because he encrypted the data on his Palm. And he thought that if I just teach them how to decrypt it, we can just keep swapping them back and forth, and then this data will be protected in transition from US to Moscow. Today, hey, going after a cyber spy means getting behind a computer and being able to be more of a threat hunter, being able to see where data has gone wrong. So what I tell organizations all the time, if you want to catch the Robert Hansens in your organization, you need your data to tell you a story. You have to understand your architecture so well and where your data is and who is accessing it implicitly, because in order to catch a spy, you have to see when someone is doing something they shouldn't, or when someone's accessing data they're not supposed to, or data is being accessed at a time that doesn't normally happen. So I want to round back, James, to AI, right? Because the AI is used for bad, but AI is also used for good, because AI is the way that cybersecurity is deploying our own good guys in cyberspace, our own AI, to understand data and see and sort what is good and what is bad, so that it can create those early alert systems for threat hunters who can then go in and see if a Robert Hansen is sniffing around in your most valuable secrets.
And, our title has hunting in it. You've brought that idea up, and it is a much more, I believe, in my observation of the industry over the many years I've been in it, is we're much more proactive in terms of security than we ever have been, right? It was a very reactive game back in the day. But it's good to hear that there is that focus on the proactive side of things. I'm a simple guy. Analogies work for me. Car analogies work for me. So if you'll play along with me for a moment, Eric, this is kind of a little state of the union on where are we, the companies and the general public, compared to the bad guys. And okay. I'm going to go to NASCAR. Okay. The bad guys are in the lead of the race. Are we sniffing their tail? We're a car or two length behind. Are we coming off of corner 3 while they're going into corner 4? Are we getting ready to be lapped by the bad guys? What do you see a kind of state of the union of where we stand?
So here's where we are. If you're looking at where we are in the world of cybersecurity, and in cybersecurity that can be deployed, both physical and data-driven, in order to stop the majority of cyber attacks, we're just on their rear fender. And, we can be a little mean every once in a while and swerve a bit and tap and try to make them crash. The problem is that each time cybersecurity determines that a major attack has happened, I'm talking about the sophisticated cyber attacks by cybercrime syndicates or the best in espionage units, it takes a while to figure out how they did it, where they landed, what they did, and devise methods to keep these attackers from doing it again. So what we've learned in the science of cybersecurity, which is really just like deploying counterintelligence into computer systems, is that criminals and spies will come up with a novel attack and they will continue to deploy it again and again and again and again until it doesn't work anymore. I mean, spear phishing is still a thing. We still haven't figured out how to completely stop it. There are good ways to get after it, but it's still a thing, and it shouldn't. It's been around forever. Part of that is, look, we can get real esoteric. It's the password, but let me continue with this car analogy because I actually really like it. So what happens is we bump them they fire off ahead, and then we finally catch up. The goal of cybersecurity is to lap them, and that is where we need to go into the future. Just a really fast 30-second example. If you were in Vegas, like I speak all over the world, I love speaking in Vegas, easy to get in and out, all the best hotels. But if you were there last September, you might have had a lot of problems checking into a hotel. They were actually putting water bottles in some of the hotels' elevators just in case an elevator got stopped. You couldn't make a reservation at one of the restaurants. It cost $100 million worth of damage in just downtime in major Vegas hotels for about a couple of weeks because of a major ransomware attack by a cybercrime syndicate called Al5, right? So they hammered Vegas. Now the FBI got really upset because everybody loves Vegas, and they went after Al5 on the dark web, which is a difficult thing to do. And they got them. By December, they shut down their servers. They stole their encryption keys. They handed them off to everybody who had been compromised, and they thought they were gone. The problem is that just in the last few weeks, Al5 came back and attacked a large pharmaceutical network that allows people to fill their prescriptions. I try not to name names, and it's still chaos by another large ransomware attack. So yes, we can get the bad guys. We can shut them down and we can stop them, but they're kind of like a phoenix. We torture them and they rise from the ashes and they come back just because the dark web is pretty much unstoppable at this point. It lives on the internet. It's like a parasite there. It's really difficult to shut them down because the bad guys have backups in cybersecurity too. So what we have to do is focus on cybersecurity for each company, for each business unit. We need to protect ourselves. It's not like we can say the FBI is just going to come and protect us. I mean, the FBI is great, but it's just one agency. Everyone has to work to protect yourself, because here's how I'll leave it. The bad guys don't really care who you are or how important you are or how special you are or what you make or what you sell. All they care about is whether you're vulnerable. Because to every one of us, whether it's your laptop at home with pictures of your kids, or a multinational corporation that's doing business all over the world and has billions in their bank account, all the criminals know that your data is the most important thing in the world to you. And if they can compromise it, they know that you will pay them.
And unfortunately, that's what it still comes down to, time after time after time. Money. Eric, really appreciate it, folks. Eric O'Neill, the book is Gray Day. The movie, again, came out in 2007. Breach, if you haven't seen it, I know Cole went back and watched it before our conversation, so he relived that. But appreciate your time, Eric, and of course, my thanks to Cole and Raymond as well. Folks, hope we gave you some insights into some of the things that HPE and Experis are doing together to give you the tools out there to be as secure as possible and do it in the way that you need to be secure, not just a one-size-fits-all, slap it on and move on, but they want to work with you to really understand what you need to focus on and then bring you the tools and expertise to do that. If you want to learn more, though, we encourage you to do a couple of things. One, we have a phone number for you. It is 301-417-4132. And if you want to visit online, experistg.com for more information. With that, we'll wrap things up for today. Appreciate everyone joining us. Again, James Hilliard here. We do look forward to talking to you all down the road.